I thought $50 a day would be tight for Malaysia. I thought I'd be counting every ringgit, sleeping in hostels with questionable plumbing, eating instant noodles on street corners. I was wrong. So catastrophically wrong that by day 3, I was sitting in a rooftop infinity pool overlooking the Petronas Towers, sipping fresh coconut water, having just eaten until I physically couldn't move, and I had spent exactly $32. The guilt hit me then, not because I was overspending, but because I realized how absurdly privileged this budget was for a country that most travel influencers claim you need at least $100 a day to enjoy properly. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment I stepped off that plane in Kuala Lumpur with $500 cash in my pocket for 10 days and a spreadsheet that I was absolutely certain would keep me disciplined. The airport itself was my first clue that something was different here. While I'm used to airport water costing $7 and a sad sandwich running you $15, I found myself staring at a food court where a complete meal, and I mean rice, curry, vegetables, chicken, the works, cost me about $3.50. I bought it thinking it was going to be mediocre airport food. It wasn't. It was better than meals I'd paid $30 for in other countries. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The train from the airport into the city center, this sleek, modern, air-conditioned express train that would cost you $25 in most major cities, cost me $2.30. I sat there in shock, recalculating my entire budget in my head, wondering if I had somehow misread the currency conversion. I hadn't. Malaysia was just that affordable, and I was about to discover that my carefully planned budget wasn't tight at all. It was almost insulting. My accommodation for the first 3 nights was in Chinatown, right in the heart of Kuala Lumpur. I booked a private room in a guest house for $12 a night, expecting, honestly, a shoebox with a window unit that sounded like a helicopter and maybe a bathroom I'd have to share with strangers. What I got was a clean, spacious room with proper air conditioning, a private bathroom with hot water, decent Wi-Fi, and a small balcony overlooking the street where night markets sprawled out every evening like an explosion of colors and smells. $12. I paid more for hostel beds in Europe where I had to climb a ladder to sleep 3 feet from someone else's feet. That first evening, I walked through Petaling Street, which is the main stretch of Chinatown's night market, and this is where the guilt really started creeping in. Street food vendors lined every available space, and the smells were intoxicating. Grilled satay, fresh roti canai, char kway teow sizzling on massive woks, curry puffs, dim sum, fresh fruit cut into elaborate displays. I started ordering, trying to pace myself but failing completely because everything cost between $1 and $3. I ate satay chicken with peanut sauce, 10 skewers for less than $3. I had fresh spring rolls that were so good I went back for seconds. I tried sendal, this incredible dessert with shaved ice, coconut milk, palm sugar, and green jelly noodles that sounds weird but tastes like heaven, for about $1.20. By the time I stumbled back to my guest house, I had eaten enough food for 3 people, tried 7 different dishes, and spent less than $15 total. I lay in bed that night, uncomfortably full, doing the math. Accommodation $12, food $15, transport $2.30. I had spent $29.30 on a day where I had eaten like royalty and traveled in comfort through one of Southeast Asia's most modern cities. I had $20.70 left in my daily budget that I hadn't even touched. The guilt was starting to build because I realized that what I considered a tight budget was actually more money than many locals here earned in a day, possibly 2 days. The next morning, I decided to splurge. If $50 was too much, I was going to see exactly how far I could push this budget while still keeping to the limit. I took a Grab, which is Southeast Asia's version of Uber, from Chinatown to the Batu Caves, a journey of about 13 kilometers. It cost me $4. In New York or London, that same journey would be $30 minimum. The Batu Caves themselves are free to enter. Free. You climb 272 rainbow-colored steps up to these massive cave temples, and there's no entrance fee. I spent an hour exploring, taking photos with the monkeys who are absolutely not afraid of humans and will steal your food if you're not careful, and marveling at the massive golden statue of Lord Murugan that stands over 100 feet tall at the entrance. Coming back down, I was hungry again, and there were food stalls at the base of the caves. I had banana leaf rice, which is this incredible experience where they literally serve your food on a banana leaf, and it comes with rice, multiple curries, vegetables, papadum, and usually some form of protein. The vegetarian version cost me $2.20. The version with chicken and fish was $3.50. I went for the full experience, and I ate until I had to unbutton my jeans. $3.50. I'd spent $4 on transport and $3.50 on food, and I'd seen one of Malaysia's most iconic landmarks. $7.50 for half a day of incredible experiences. That afternoon, back in the city, I went to the Petronas Towers. Now, going up to the observation deck costs about $25, which I considered but decided against because honestly, you can see the towers from everywhere in the city, and the view of them is better than the view from them. Instead, I went to the KLCC park at the base of the towers, which is this beautiful green space with a lake, fountains, and a children's playground. I sat there for 2 hours, watching the city move around me, completely free. Then I discovered the shopping mall connected to the towers has this massive food court in the basement. We're talking hundreds of stalls serving every type of Malaysian, Chinese, Indian, and international food you can imagine. I had nasi lemak, which is Malaysia's national dish, coconut rice with sambal, anchovies, peanuts, boiled egg, and chicken curry, for about $3. It was phenomenal. Here's where it gets interesting, though. That evening, I met a local guy named Rashid at a coffee shop. We started talking because I was taking photos of my food like the insufferable travel blogger I apparently am, and he asked me where I was from and what brought me to Malaysia. I told him about my $50 a day budget challenge, expecting him to maybe laugh or tell me that was reasonable. Instead, he got quiet for a moment, and then he said something that hit me harder than I expected. He told me that the average daily wage for many workers in Malaysia is around $30 to $40, and that's for a full day's work. Suddenly, my budget challenge felt less like a challenge and more like a mockery. Rashid was kind about it, though. He explained that Malaysia has this interesting economic situation where costs are low but wages haven't grown proportionally with the country's development. He told me that a local family of 4 might spend $15 to $20 a day on food, maybe $30 if they're eating well. Rent in Kuala Lumpur for a small apartment outside the city centre might be $200 to $300 a month. My 10-day accommodation budget alone was more than some people's monthly rent. He wasn't trying to make me feel guilty, but the perspective shift was dramatic. What I considered budget travel was actually quite comfortable living by local standards. But then Rashid did something unexpected. He invited me to have dinner with his family the next night, to show me real Malaysian home cooking and to help me understand the culture better. I accepted, obviously, because when a local invites you into their home in a foreign country, you don't say no. That next day, I decided to explore beyond Kuala Lumpur. I took a bus to Malacca, a historical coastal city about 2 hours south. The bus ticket cost me $6 for a comfortable, air-conditioned coach with Wi-Fi and charging ports. $6 for a 2-hour intercity journey. I've paid more for a 30-minute train ride in other countries. Malacca is this incredible UNESCO World Heritage City where Portuguese, Dutch, and British colonial history collides with Chinese and Malay culture. I spent the day wandering through Jonker Street, visiting the Red Dutch buildings, exploring the ruins of Portuguese fortifications, and eating my way through the famous Malacca Nyonya cuisine, which is this unique blend of Chinese and Malay cooking. I had chicken rice balls, which are exactly what they sound like and somehow taste amazing. I tried sendal again, but the Malacca version, which is supposedly the original and best. I ate Portuguese-style grilled fish. I had popia, these fresh spring rolls that are made to order. Every single meal cost between $2 and $4, and every single one was memorable. The bus back to Kuala Lumpur was another $6, and I arrived just in time to meet Rashid for dinner at his family's home. His mother had cooked this spread that would have cost hundreds of dollars in a restaurant, rendang, which is this slow-cooked beef curry that's rich and complex, sambal prawns, stir-fried vegetables, rice, and at least 4 different sambals and condiments. His younger sister had made kuah, these traditional Malay cakes and snacks. We sat on the floor around a mat, eating with our hands in the traditional way, and they asked me questions about my country, my travels, why I wanted to visit Malaysia. I tried to offer money for the meal. Rashid's mother looked almost offended. "This is Malaysian hospitality," she told me through Rashid's translation. "You don't pay for hospitality." I felt the guilt deepen, not because of anything they said or did, but because I realized how transactional I'd been viewing this entire trip. Every experience, every meal, every interaction had a price tag in my mind, and I was constantly calculating, budgeting, tracking. Meanwhile, here was a family sharing their food, their home, their time, asking for nothing in return except maybe that I remember Malaysia fondly. The next few days continued in the same vein. I took another day trip, this time to Batu Ferringhi Beach in Penang, which required a flight. Now, here's where you'd expect the budget to blow up, right? A domestic flight must cost at least $100. It cost me $32 for a 1-hour flight. $32. I've paid more for airport parking. Penang itself was even more affordable than Kuala Lumpur. I stayed in a beachfront guest house for $10 a night. I ate the famous Penang street food, char kway teow, asam laksa, rojak, Hokkien mee, and nothing cost more than $3 a dish. I rented a scooter for a full day to explore the island, which cost me $8 including a full tank of gas. Georgetown, the capital of Penang, is this incredible street art capital with murals on every corner, colonial architecture, clan houses, temples, and some of the best food in all of Malaysia. I spent 2 full days there, eating, exploring, taking photos, and each day I struggled to spend even $40 despite actively trying to splurge. I went to nice cafes, I took grabs instead of walking, I bought souvenirs, and still, I was coming in under budget. By day 8, I'd given up on the budget challenge entirely. It wasn't a challenge. Malaysia had broken my spreadsheet, broken my expectations, and honestly, broken my understanding of value. I'd been to countries where $50 got you a mediocre hostel bed and maybe 2 meals if you were lucky. Here, $50 was a daily allowance that let you live comfortably, eat incredibly well, travel freely, and still have money left over. The guilt I felt wasn't about spending too much. It was about the realization that the global economy is so imbalanced that what's pocket change to someone from a wealthy country represents a full day's wages to someone here working just as hard, if not harder. On my final day, I decided to do something with that guilt that had been building. I went back to Chinatown, to the same street food vendors I'd visited on my first night, and I started talking to them. I asked about their lives, their businesses, what it's like running a stall. One woman, Auntie Lee, who made the best char siu bao I'd ever tasted, told me she works 14-hour days, 6 days a week. She makes about $40 to $50 profit on a good day after expenses. $50 profit after 14 hours of work. That's what I'd budgeted for myself per day to essentially play tourist and eat good food. I spent more that day than any other day of my trip. Not on myself, but on buying meals for people. When I saw families at food stalls, I'd quietly pay their bill before leaving. When I took a grab, I tipped the equivalent of the fare. I bought all my souvenirs from small local vendors instead of the big shops. It wasn't charity, and I wasn't trying to be some white savior. I just needed to do something with this uncomfortable awareness that had been growing inside me, this understanding that travel budgets and travel privilege are so deeply intertwined with global inequality that you can't separate them. The numbers for my entire trip told a story I hadn't expected. 10 days in Malaysia. Budget of $500. I'd seen Kuala Lumpur, Malacca, Penang, and Georgetown. I'd eaten at least 40 different meals, all of them delicious. I'd stayed in comfortable accommodations. I'd taken flights, buses, trains, and countless grab rides. I'd visited temples, caves, beaches, markets, and museums. And even with my last day spending spree, I came home with $70 in my pocket. I'd spent $430 total for 10 days, an average of $43 per day, and I had wanted for absolutely nothing. So yes, I feel guilty. Not because I spent too much, but because the phrase budget travel means something completely different depending on where you're standing. My budget was someone else's weekly income. My cheap meal was someone's hourly wage. And Malaysia, beautiful, welcoming, delicious Malaysia, had shown me that you can't understand a place just by calculating costs. You have to understand what those costs mean, who they affect, and how lucky you are to be able to travel at all, regardless of your budget. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.